Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty freaking sad. So for those of you that don't know, director Chris McKay, who was the director for the Lego Batman movie, has come out and actually revealed the plot that was going to happen for the Lego Batman movie 2. Which is just such a bummer to find out, because this sounds like it is going to be pretty epic. But before I get to that, it's actually kind of stunning that we never got a sequel to the Lego Batman movie, especially when you look at the actual numbers. It did really, really well financially. Now, it's obviously not as big of a number as the live action Batman movies are concerned, but also those live action Batman movies cost about 2 and sometimes 3 times as much money to make. Because if we look at the Lego Batman movie actual breakdown for their finances, you'll see that the worldwide box office was about $310 million, with an additional roughly around $45 million that was made just in the US on the home market sales. So that would be obviously Blu-ray and DVD sales, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. Add to that, let's say, some international guesstimate of about, let's just say, another 10 million, just to go on ahead and be conservative with that. So that would be $365 million in overall revenue. This is not including, obviously, anything that was made from merchandise or anything that was made from TV showings or streaming for that matter. But then when you look at the actual budget for this film, it was only 80 million bucks. Which is why, again, it's kind of stunning when you look at something that looks like it quadrupled its budget as far as what it made at the box office or just its core financials. It's really confusing as to why we never actually got a sequel. And by the way, if you've never watched the Lego Batman movie, I still to this day think it is a criminally underrated film. You definitely need to go out and check it on out. But let's get into the sad part of this, because boy, oh boy, it sounds like they had some really cool ideas for the second film. So Chris McKay was doing an interview with Uproxx, and this is exactly what he said. We had a really fun script with Dan Harmon and Michael Waldron, who wrote a really fun kind of Super Friends type film. It would have been a quasi Super Friends movie, and the structure was going to be sort of like the Godfather 2 type of thing, where Batman and the Justice League are facing a modern day problem in the form of Lex Luthor and OMAC, while at the same time flashing back to the reasons why Batman and the Justice League, or more particular Superman, have bad blood, which I think is a really, really cool idea. So this would almost be somewhat of a mocking way of doing maybe a more lighthearted version to a certain extent of Batman versus Superman. I also really like the concept that obviously the first film very much focused on Batman and his rogues and contained everything to Gotham City itself. And it almost seems like this movie would, in some way, shape, or form, have offered us a resolution or a possible answers to why none of the other superheroes were involved, because they have some beef that needed to be sorted. And I also really like the idea that this not only would have introduced Superman and some of the other Justice League members into this Lego realm, but then in addition to that, we would have gotten a brand new villain in the form of Lex Luthor and OMAC. But Chris McKay went on to say the following as well. The film was going to explore Superman and Batman's relationship in a very different way than what you've seen portrayed, including Superman's alienation from humanity and how hard it is to truly be friends, real friends, for years. It was ultimately going to answer the question, how do you become super friends? And there was going to be a crossover with a major franchise that can only happen in a Lego movie. So again, this all sounds pretty freaking awesome. I really like that this would have been essentially kind of an answer to a much more lighthearted version of the BVS idea, which I think would have been really, really cool to see the flip side of that coin, the darker, tonally, much more mature story of BVS on one side, and then the much more lighthearted and family-friendly version of that in the form of the Lego Batman movie 2. And additionally to that, obviously it's really cool that he went ahead and actually teased that there was going to be a crossover with an additional major franchise, which is of course something that we saw plenty of in the original Lego movie, where we saw characters from a bunch of different franchises, including Batman, appear in that film. So it would have been really cool to see in Lego Batman 2 what franchise that might have been. Let me know what you guys think. Are you as bummed out to hear about the news that they were this far along with this Lego Batman Movie 2 idea? The fact that they literally had a full script done and they were ready to go. It really does seem like a lot of the story was already in place, but it seems like now that the movie rights have transferred over to Universal and they're the ones that are going to be making Lego movies going forward, or at least that's what we're meant to believe, but they haven't really done anything. And so it just seems like this might just be one of those what could have been type films.